What's up, everybody? The Setup Man coming at you today from Daytona, World Center for Speed, driving a Cup car in test session here. One tip I have at Daytona is if you are qualifying, like on your warm-up lap, run the high line like I just did. That helps you get the car up to speed quicker by making a wider arc, a bigger circle, gives you more time to get the car up to speed. Once you get it up to speed, then you're going to want to stay on the bottom. I would not recommend running the high line coming out of the pits like after a green flag pit stop or something, but running the high line there as you come around on a warm-up lap for qualifying can really help you get the car up to speed quicker. This setup is, I hit 200 here on the back straightaway. That wasn't the best. I usually hit it a little earlier on the back straightaway, but I usually hit about 200 miles an hour. I've ran 45 fives with this. I don't know that I was really that good on this lap. We'll see if I can get it in 45 fives. If not, I may have to make another circle.
Wow, that's fast.
That was a 618. Yeah, we'll try to get a 45.5 here. You'll notice the engine is only turning maybe just under 8,000 RPMs. That is kind of by design. When you're alone here by yourself, you don't really want the engine to be running real high RPMs on a restrictor plate track. If you're almost at the red line when you're by yourself, then the engine doesn't have a whole lot of room to turn any more RPMs when you get in the drive. So that's why you kind of want it to be almost feel like, I don't know if I'd say sluggish, but you want it to have some room left on that tachometer before it redlines, because you're going to be carrying, I don't know, maybe 10 or 15 miles an hour more speed when you get in the drive.
Wow, that's fast.
605, I got to tighten it up just a little bit. I swung a little bit wide coming off of turn 4, and I think that really made the difference in that lap. The other thing about turning a fast lap is you gotta turn a fast lap, you have to move the steering wheel as little as possible. So you turn it a little bit going into the turn, you gotta get it turned just right, and then you just leave it there if you can. Turning the wheel too much or too little and going back and forth to try to get the car back in the groove scrubs off a lot of speed, so you don't want to be doing that. This was a little bit crisper, and let's see if it shows up. I didn't swing as wide, I was a little more precise in the steering. Let's see what we did here on the stopwatch. There was the 45.5 I'm looking for. So just little tiny movements in the steering wheel tend to make a big difference on the stopwatch. I'm not sure this is the fastest alone setup, okay? Because you could probably change the gearing around, turn 600 or 700 more RPMs and get a little more speed, but this really works well in the draft because you're only running, a little under 8,000 RPMs. When you are in the draft, you've got a whole 1,000 RPMs to work with on that tachometer before you start the red line. And it seems like with this setup, you can get huge runs. It really sucks up to the car in front of you. And like I said, you have that extra room on the tachometer, so you can get huge runs. You can be going 10 or 15 miles an hour faster and not really have anything to worry about as far as redlining or the engine kind of maxing out on you. But with all that being said, we got a 45.5 on video. Let's go to the garage and look at the setup. I didn't spend a lot of time talking about how to run Daytona. If you're qualifying to run by yourself, run the bottom line. If you're in a race, glue that thing to the bottom line unless you have a lot of help. The general rule at Daytona is if you want to make the top side work, you got to have at least one more car in that train that's on the top side than the bottom. So if the bottom side has 3 cars and you want to get around them, you got to have 4 in your line to get around them. That's just kind of a general rule. But let's go to the garage and talk about the setup. And like I said, this setup is extremely similar to what I have at Talladega.
What's that mean?
The bump and rebound, I am at either 3s all the way or 4s all the way about any restrictor plate track I go to. The front weight and wedge aren't real high. You might want to go up a little bit on the wedge, depending on how it feels in the draft. Sometimes you feel like you're making a turn and you're wanting to clip the apron a lot because the car's just diving down to the bottom. Go up a couple clicks on the wedge and it'll help take care of that. If you can drive it a little bit loose, it seems like you're a little bit faster, and you don't lose as much speed through the corners. But if you're clipping the apron a lot, go up a couple clicks on the wedge. Pardon me. The ride height, a trick at restrictor plate tracks, bump that front ride height up to 6. Bumping that up helps you gain straightaway speed. I'm not sure I exactly understand the physics behind that, but it works. So bump that up if you're fooling around with any restrictor plate setups. Pretty soft. I use around 1200 springs on the front, but it's a restrictor plate track. You go a little softer, but on the rear springs you go really soft. I don't even think I run springs this soft at like a real flat track like a Martinsville or even on a road course. This is probably the softest rear springs I run anywhere. I think those soft rear springs help the back of the car kind of squat down a little bit and you get less aero drag from that spoiler. I'm assuming that's why that seems to work. You max out the tire pressures, and this is all pretty basic stuff about any restrictor plate track or setup you look at. You're going to see the tires are just maxed out. That helps you gain front end speed or straightaway speed. It hurts and the handling, but you really don't have to worry about handling much on restrictor plate tracks. You can pretty much run it wide open all the way through the corners. So handling isn't that important, so you can bump those tire pressures up. I maxed out the track bars. That also helps, is what is typical of a restrictor plate track, and I think that makes the car a little bit looser. I wondered about the camber settings. Tire wear is really not an issue. I probably could have got more aggressive on the camber, but it seems like at restrictor plate tracks, for whatever reason, with tire wear not being too much of an issue, you find yourself doing a lot of 2-tire pit stops. Okay, so you do 2-tire pit stops at the end of a stage or at the end of the race, and I was afraid that if I went crazy on the camber settings, I might gain a little bit of speed, but the tire wear, especially on the left side, might be so bad that you couldn't pull off a 2-tire stop at the end of the race, or a no-tire stop, because sometimes that scenario, it seems like I have more restrictor plates than anywhere else. You might be able to get a little more tape on there, but keep in mind, when you're in the draft, you're going to run a little bit hotter, so I didn't really get aggressive on the tape, but you might be able to go up a click on tape. When you're out there by yourself running in qualifying or something, you can certainly go up a click on the tape and it wouldn't hurt you at all. Finally, the gearing. This rear end ratio 280 is as low as you can go. Now you can get a final drive ratio that's lower than that by running a third gear below 1 and then run it in third gear, but I didn't do that. I run in 4th gear most of the time on this. Now, I know people who say that they like to run in 3rd gear when they're in the draft, and then when they get a run on somebody, they will shift into 4th gear. For whatever reason, I'm either not very good at that or it just doesn't work for me. So I usually run it in 4th gear 99% of the time. So I could probably adjust this gearing to make it more evenly spaced and not have a 105 there, but I left it that way because that was kind of a tip somebody gave me, that you can run it in 3rd gear in the draft and kind of shift to 4th when you get a run on somebody. Maybe you just got to have a little more skill than I do to pull that off, but it just didn't work for me. But anyway, that is my updated Daytona setup. I'm not saying it is the fastest when it comes to running by itself, but I think it's respectable, but it works really well in the draft. So with all that being said, I will end this. Thank you guys for the support. Appreciate it so much. Thanks for all the feedback you're giving me. I'm getting a lot of great feedback on the videos I'm putting out. Hope this works for you, runs lots of fast laps, and you win lots of races with it. And with that, I will sign off and say goodbye and tell you guys best of luck with this setup and have a great day.